So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to our webinar titled Thriving in the Field, Building Resilience for Child Welfare Professionals. As Sam mentioned, I am Lyndi Bradley, and I'm here with my coworker, Merina Cameron, and we're just really happy to be here to talk to you all today. So before we begin the actual presentation, we are going to tell you just a little bit about the STARS training. I know Sam just mentioned it a little bit as well. So for those that don't know, STARS is an advanced certification offered by the Florida Institute for Child Welfare's MyALIGN program. STARS is a university-led, evidence-based, trauma-informed, engaging workforce resilience training that will motivate, educate, and improve the skills of the child welfare workforce to improve child safety. The information we'll be presenting today is just a quick little sneak peek at what STARS has to offer. And as Sam stated, applications are now open for the second cohort, and it is available for all child welfare case managers and protective investigators in the state of Florida. Just a little bit more about STARS and what it has to offer. We have an introduction video from the certifications facilitator, Carol Edwards, who is also one of FSU's own. We're just going to give you a little bit more information about the cert.
Welcome to STARS. Thank you for taking this course. Thank you for caring about children and families. As a proud child welfare professional for 27 years, I know the dedication and sacrifice that it takes to do your job well. Among my child welfare colleagues, I found a family that I will cherish for a lifetime. Regardless of how difficult some of the work is, I always believe that people can change and that sharing hope and a positive outlook with others leads to a more fulfilling career experience. We at Florida State University want you to succeed in your wonderful career in child welfare. This first professional certification will give you new knowledge and skills that you will use your entire career. You'll learn the why behind your client's words and behavior, and how to do your job in a way that allows you to become confident. You will also learn things about yourself as a person and gain insight into your own history that can help you reflect on your own resilience. Every day that you log in, you will learn and become stronger and more resilient. A little bit of knowledge adds up over time to big, important changes. Soon you will be able to share that knowledge with your clients. Soon you will feel more empowered about your work and have a clearer view of the positive difference you are making in people's lives. We also realize that you are just one person in a large system, and that this information needs to be communicated to your supervisors and the system leaders who make decisions. We promise that we are working on that too. I can tell you that this work can be transformative, and that FSU will be with you every step of the way. So welcome, congratulations, and let's get started.
All right, so now back to what we will be presenting on today, which is building resilience for child welfare professionals. So why is this important? Why are we talking about this today? Because we know everyone is and has been struggling. I feel like every time I talk to somebody, somebody's going through something, right? And we're hoping that this session will provide participants with hope and energy to take on the future. Some goals we would like to help you achieve today are learn more about tools and resources available to help you and your clients respond with resilience in the face of challenges. Engage in practical approaches for coping with personal and workplace stress. And collaborate with colleagues to discuss tactics to normalize struggle and building connections with others. So just generally, what is stressful in your life right now? Anything in your personal life, anything professionally? We'll go more in depth on that in a little bit, but what is going on in your life that you're stressed out about? School, balancing work, kids.
Oh, grief. That's a hard.
Grief. Universal trauma. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Transitions are so hard. Cost of living. Sure.
Always. Always a struggle.
Thank you all for participating in this.
Yes. So that exercise was just to normalize the struggles that many of you are facing and, others are facing as well. Research shows professionals working in child protection may adopt negative behaviors as a result of the stress and challenges that they experience in the field. And these behaviors can include unhealthy eating habits, substance abuse, self-neglect, and insufficient physical activity. Approximately 70% of social workers are believed to experience secondary traumatic stress or STS. All this to say is that everyone is struggling and you're not alone. So now consider the impact that stress has on you and your profession. What are some work-related stressors that you feel are depleting your energy? Lack of communication, long hours, lack of teamwork, clients who don't comply, too much documentation.
So I'm
Way to
seeing
catch
a lot
that.
of too much documentation, which is taking away from client time, feeling tired and exhausted due to not having time for breaks, working with difficult clients, maybe clients that aren't complying, long hours.
Lack of communication.
Interesting. Less staff, which is adding more work for
Work.
others.
Mhm. Okay, we know everybody can't see the comments, but we're going to go over some of these things anyway. Everything that everybody was talking about in the comments, we're about to talk about. So, there are some common stressors that many child welfare staff experience. As we just saw and try to communicate in the chat, these stressors can include stressful events or situations that happen in the workplace, but do not always rise to the level of traumatic events. Some things that everyone's already mentioned in the chat, there's large and demanding caseloads, long days and unpredictable schedules, time-consuming paperwork and documentation, negative workplace morale, adapting to new technology, difficulty witnessing the damaging effects of abuse and maltreatment on children, staff turnover, constant change in coworker relationships, ethical dilemmas between what the client needs and the system policy requirements, lack of basic safety, and an inadequate time for supervision, case consultation, and collaboration. So over time, a stressful work environment can lead to reduced communication, strained relationships, and a lack of trust. Ongoing stresses in the workplace can create a work environment that feels like it's in constant crisis. Staff can begin to feel overwhelmed, hopeless, helpless, and demoralized about their ability to help their clients. These feelings can culminate in professional dissatisfaction and employee burnout. So, employees may experience burnout. Burnout is a state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion caused by long-term involvement in emotionally demanding situations. People experiencing burnout often believe that they are no longer effective at their job because they feel their personal resources have been depleted. It's important to note that anyone can experience burnout in any type of job due to the demands of employment. Burnout does not require exposure to another person who has experienced trauma. Some symptoms of burnout may include depression, cynicism, boredom, loss of compassion, and discouragement. Some child welfare professionals may experience high levels of burnout. They may burn out at a higher rate than other helping professions, and they may be overwhelmed and stretched beyond their capacities. Professional dissatisfaction and burnout could lead to child welfare workers losing sight of the essential purpose of their work and develop less satisfaction and meaning from their work. It's important to realize that everyone experiences common stressors in their lives, right? This isn't to invalidate anyone's experiences, but just knowing that you're not alone in your struggles. Every day, people are having to meet work demands, pay for housing and daycare. They experience illnesses and are meeting competing demands for basic needs and their attention. These all create stress and that stress is tolerable because they don't normally feel like life-threatening. But trauma is different than stress. So what is trauma? Throughout the STARS curriculum, we use the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA's, definition of trauma. And they say individual trauma results from an event, series of events, or set of circumstances that is experienced by an individual as physically or emotionally harmful or life-threatening, and that has a lasting adverse effects on the individual's functioning and mental, physical, social, emotional, or spiritual well-being. A person experiencing trauma feels like their lives are threatened, or the lives of those who they care about are threatened. Their sense of safety and well-being and ability to function may be impaired. It's important to recognize that trauma is nearly universal. In the United States, majority of youth have experienced at least one traumatic event before their 18th birthday. About 1 in 11 people will experience post-traumatic stress in their lifetimes. Individuals who identify as LGBTQ+ are more likely to experience bullying, child maltreatment, physical assault, PTSD, and sexual victimization than their heterosexual cisgender peers. And racially motivated violence and discrimination can be traumatic and has been linked to PTSD symptoms among minoritized communities. Some common types of trauma across the lifespan include the loss of a loved one, experiencing violence, abuse, and/or neglect, witnessing violence in the home or in the community, divorce or separation, incarceration, natural disasters, loved ones experiencing mental illness or substance use disorder. It's important to recognize that you may not have experienced some of these issues, or you may have experienced some of these issues, but also your clients might be experiencing some of these things and you'll be witnessing that. So next we're going to watch a video. There are many ways to view trauma, and in this video we talk about trauma in the context of adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs.
As a child welfare professional, you know that parents of children who are involved in the child protection system can experience many difficulties. These include learning new parenting skills and navigating the challenges of the child welfare system. Everyone has had difficult times in life, with some challenges harder to get over than others. One significant source of toxic stress for parents and their children comes from adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. Many people have experienced these ACEs growing up. It's important for child welfare professionals to learn about ACEs. What are ACEs? ACEs include a variety of negative childhood experiences such as physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical neglect, emotional neglect, incarcerated household member, parental addiction, parental mental illness, parental separation or divorce, parent abused in the home, and witnessing violence. Most people have had some form of adverse childhood experience. Lots of people who had ACEs may not have gotten the help they need to deal with the impact of this trauma. When trauma is left unaddressed, it can leave people at higher risk for problems like heart disease, cancer, asthma, autoimmune diseases, obesity, sleep problems, depression, anxiety, alcoholism, PTSD, suicide, drug abuse, mental illness. How does that happen? Chronic stress from exposure to significant ACEs can interfere with brain development responsible for important functions like problem solving, impulse control, and anger management. There is reason for hope for your clients because it is never too late to heal from the effects of toxic stress. It may be helpful for your client to know that the unresolved effects of ACEs can make it more difficult to manage stress later in life, including the stress of relationships and parenting. So if parents find themselves struggling to cope with the challenges of separation from their child or living up to the demands of the case plan, it may be helpful to connect them with helpful resources on ACEs and building protective factors. They can reflect on what happened to me instead of what's wrong with me. Helping people realize that there may be a reason why they're struggling can be empowering. It can shed new light on past experiences and motivate people to reach out for help if they need it. Even if a parent does not disclose that they have had any childhood trauma growing up, understanding how the stress of the current situation can affect their children's development can help them make smart parenting decisions for their children now. Child welfare workers play a very important role by helping parents to provide a safe, supportive environment and encouraging parents and children to develop healthy coping skills. An empathetic, supportive relationship with your clients can add to the foundation of their resilience. We hope this inspires you to make the best of this time you have with clients. Remember, growing up in a safe and nurturing environment supports child development. As you move through the rest of this training, you will learn new skills to help you overcome adversity yourself and to ease the stress of parents navigating the system. We hope you spend some time finding the resources that work best for you and your clients' families, because everyone deserves to be happy and healthy.
So as highlighted in this video, it's crucial for child welfare professionals to embrace a trauma-informed approach to effectively support the clients and communities they serve. However, the significance of being trauma-informed extends way beyond just helping clients. It can also positively impact your own well-being. Whether you're facing challenges or overcoming personal traumas, applying trauma-informed skills inward can contribute to your own growth and healing. As professionals in the field of child welfare, the nature of your work holds the potential to significantly impact your well-being. Chances are you will consistently be faced with your client's trauma, and undoubtedly it will affect you. This is the inherent price of being a helping professional, and we often refer to this concept as the cost of caring. A quote that captures this concept is, "The expectation that we can be immersed in suffering and loss daily and not be touched by it is as unrealistic as expecting to be able to walk through water without getting wet." In your role, you navigate through the waters of your client's trauma and grief and stress each day, and there's no denying that your shoes are getting wet. Another way to describe this concept is vicarious trauma. So what is vicarious trauma? Sometimes it's also called secondary trauma. Vicarious trauma is the emotional residue that may arise from hearing about or witnessing another person's traumatic experience. Essentially, vicarious trauma involves negative reactions to exposure to someone else's trauma. It's important to note as well that vicarious trauma can further activate previously experienced trauma. As we have mentioned earlier, many individuals enter helping professions due to their own personal adversities, which ultimately motivates them to want to make a positive impact, right? However, when working with a client whose trauma mirrors your own, particularly if your trauma remains unresolved, there is a potential for vicarious trauma to trigger your own past trauma responses. So this truly underscores the importance of prioritizing self-care in this field of work. To be efficient in our jobs and effective when helping others, we must first ensure our own well-being. So these are some typical responses to vicarious trauma, which can vary in levels of intensity. Sometimes severe vicarious trauma responses can share some similarities with responses associated with post-traumatic stress disorder. So responses to traumatic stimuli are unique for each individual. I think that's really important to talk about. So two people witnessing the same client's trauma may have totally opposite reactions. One person may experience positive responses, which empowers and motivates them to want to help their clients, while the other person may experience negative responses that might hinder their work with clients. So I'm going to go over a few of these negative responses. Some of them include having a negative change in worldview. So maybe the professional begins to believe that the world is unsafe or that there isn't any good left in the world. Another is hopelessness and feelings of inefficiency. So maybe they start to lose hope that they can help their clients and that the client situation is just too severe that they can't possibly be capable of helping them. Another response is maybe experiencing some decreased empathy. They start lacking compassion for their client's situation and behaviors, or you find it difficult to understand the emotions of the families you work with. I also want to define a couple words that are on the screen. The first one is hypervigilance, which is a heightened state of alertness where one constantly assesses and examines potential threats. The second one is hyperarousal, which is an increased sensitivity to the environment, which can lead to difficulty concentrating or sleeping, or even experiencing easy startle reactions and an elevated heart rate. So, recognizing these negative responses is crucial, especially in fields where exposure to trauma is frequent. Research actually indicates that up to 50% of child welfare workers may experience vicarious trauma while working with their child and family clients. Awareness of these responses can help you identify vicarious trauma within yourself and your colleagues. So, one of the best ways to combat vicarious trauma and stress is actually by building upon your own resilience. So, what is resilience? Resilience is a dynamic process of positive adaptation in the face of significant adversity or change. It's this concept of bouncing back after adversity. And the really great news is everyone has resilience. It's accessible to anyone, regardless of personal histories. It's not a fixed trait, nor can it be used up. In fact, it can be increased daily. So these are the 6 components of resilience. I'm going to start at the top and work around. The first one is sense of belonging, sense of control, coping, connection, character, and flexibility. I really like this diagram because you can go one by one through each component and assess your strengths and weaknesses in these areas of your life. Of course, you do not need to have strengths in all of these to be resilient. Even just having a few makes you resilient. So I'm just going to briefly go through some of these components, and I'd really like for you to reflect on my questions within your own personal and professional life. So starting with the first one at the top, having a sense of belonging. Some questions to consider are, do you feel connected to the people in your life, including your fellow child welfare colleagues? Do you feel safe in your work and home environments? Moving on to coping. Are you skilled in regulating your emotions, especially in stressful situations? Do you consider yourself to be emotionally intelligent? Meaning, are you able to identify your emotions and process them in a healthy way? Do you have coping skills that relax you and help you feel connected with yourself? And if so, are you practicing these coping skills regularly? Moving all the way over to character. Do you feel self-competent? This can look like believing in your self-efficacy or knowing your worth. Do you have a strong set of values that guide the work that you do? Have you found your meaning or purpose in life? I think we often talk about this one as helping professionals. We describe it as having compassion satisfaction, which is having a positive feeling derived from the effects of helping others. There is a positive impact associated with the meaningful work of child welfare. Having compassion satisfaction in your work is a significant protective factor from vicarious trauma and workplace stress. And lastly, I'll touch on flexibility. Do you have the hope that positive things can happen in the future? Are you able to work through problems knowing that things can get better? Do you have an understanding that nothing can be perfect and sometimes life can just be really difficult? So by assessing your personal components of resilience, you can help identify areas of improvement and then find small changes and solutions to incorporate into your personal and professional life. These small changes can ultimately boost your overall resilience. So we are going to watch a brief video on filling your resilience toolbox. I'd like you all to reflect on your own resilience skills and consider which tools you would add to your toolbox. So after watching this video, what is in your personal resilience toolbox? Feel free to share those tools of yours in the chat. Friendships, of course. Having connections, social support, so important. Family, absolutely. Having a supportive supervisor, that's huge. Hobbies, yeah. Thrifting, binge watching TV, audiobooks, swimming, spirituality. These are all great. Oh, I like that one, Shayla. Trying something new. Arts and crafts, yoga, reading. Oh, these are all wonderful. All right, so now that you have your resilience toolbox packed and ready to go, let's review the characteristics of a resilient person. So based on research, these traits are present in highly resilient people. So these people demonstrate cognitive flexibility by acknowledging their negative thoughts and avoiding striving for perfectionism. They regularly employ coping skills by seeking out resources and engaging in healthy responses to stress. They effectively regulate their emotions, maintain focus, and plan ahead. They express feelings of optimism, are hopeful for the future, and embrace a sense of humor. They prioritize their physical well-being through healthy sleeping, eating, and exercise habits. They cultivate a supportive social network and engage in positive communities. And lastly, they practice mindfulness and spirituality, which includes holding strong core values and beliefs and having a sense of purpose in life. Great news is your brain already has ways to help you fight stress, and you can actually help your brain do this. So here are 4 natural brain chemicals that can help combat stress. The first is oxytocin, also known as the love hormone. You can produce more oxytocin by doing things like hugging a loved one or playing with your pet. Another chemical is dopamine, aka the reward chemical. You can produce dopamine by engaging in self-care and completing small tasks. The next chemical is serotonin, also called the mood stabilizer. You can produce serotonin by spending time outdoors, and my personal favorite, eating dark chocolate. And lastly, we have endorphins, also called the painkiller. You can produce endorphins by simply laughing and by helping others.
So speaking of things that you already have, now we're going to talk about strengths. Why should we do this? Focusing on individual strengths helps a person feel more confident, capable, and prepared to engage in difficult or challenging situations. So how does this apply to you and or your clients? Everyone has strengths. If we want to be open to change and learn new skills, it's important to look at what our strengths are first. If we're open to change, we're more likely to develop resilience. So everybody take some time, look at the list that we have here on this slide, and identify some of your own strengths. So you can look at this list, you can come up with some of your own and choose 3 to write down for yourself, but also share in the chat because we want to talk about it. Compassionate, creative, dependable.
I really like that one. I inspire others.
Yeah. Make sure you're writing these down for yourself as well to remember later. A good team member, that's really important.
Julie, overcoming hardship, so resilience at its core.
Mhm.
Amazing.
So moving on to something that may be a barrier in building resilience, and that something is negativity bias. What is negativity bias? So it's actually easier for the human brain to remember negative things than positive things. The human brain tends to focus on threats, dangers, and negative events. This is especially true for people who have suffered from trauma, and it is crucial for them to pay close attention to every possibility of danger in order to survive. However, focusing on negative events can be a barrier to optimism and hope, which are important elements of resilience, which we've discussed. So as you can see in this graphic, we have 2 individuals sitting in some sort of park. The sun is shining, flowers are blooming, and there's even a rainbow out. However, the individual on the left is just focused on the 2 pieces of trash that are in the park and not even recognizing all the good around them. Whereas the individual on the right is trying to get them to look all around and see how nice it really is. So to combat negativity bias, first, we must recognize that it happens to all of us. And second, we can counter it by using affirmations. Affirmations are positive statements that focus a person's thinking on their strengths and hopeful possibilities instead of negativity. They can help individuals reflect on their strengths and values. When individuals remind themselves of their core values and other positive qualities, they build up their core parts of their identity when other parts feel threatened by challenges. This can increase their feelings of safety. It is thought that affirmations help a person view a threatening event more objectively, can help them feel less worried and defensive about how the stressor will affect them, and feel more empowered to manage the situation. Affirmations have been shown to increase a person's use of healthy coping mechanisms to manage stress, problem-solving abilities, openness to compromise, and willingness to engage in healthy behaviors. Affirmations reinforce positive beliefs. This can strengthen self-worth, which helps them when facing challenges. Some additional ways that we can manage stress and build resilience are taking a walk, practicing gratitude, talking to a close friend, practicing some different breathing techniques, maybe reading or any other kind of hobby, identifying your own emotions, practicing mindfulness, getting some exercise, some type of physical activity if possible, and journaling. Really any positive activity or skill that helps you cope.
So, self-care is the process of taking care of oneself with behaviors that promote health and active management of stress. Self-care is a very valuable tool to combat vicarious trauma. I'm going to go through some very simple examples. The first one is just taking a break and taking time to rest. Another one is practicing mindfulness, so maybe unplugging from technology and spending some time in nature. Another one is setting goals, maybe by breaking down your obligations into small, more attainable chunks. And another big one that I think is often overlooked is saying no. So trying to resist the urge to take on new commitments and try to minimize tasks that will add any extra stress or responsibilities. This also includes setting boundaries with the people in your life. And another big one that I personally love is creating a support system. It can look like reaching out to friends and family and even colleagues for support. So, what are some things that you guys do for self-care? Feel free to share those in the chat if you feel comfortable. Ooh, massages. Yeah. Working out. Great. Practicing gratitude. Love that. Getting rest. Time out from social media. Yes. Hike. Reading. Vacation on an island. Yeah. Sign me up for that one. That sounds great.
Same.
That's when I'm taking care of my plants. Yeah. Catering to another living thing.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
saw somebody said playing with my dogs. Yes. Also napping with my dogs. That's ideal.
Carla, self-appreciation day. I like that. That's a good one.
That is a good one.
The tough thing about self-care is sometimes we might think that we're engaging in self-care that helps us and brings us joy, but maybe that self-care activity is actually producing more harm than good. And I have an example for this that I always use. So the example is maybe there's a brand new show on Netflix that you can't stop watching. You want to binge the whole entire thing. The show is bringing you joy, but then you find yourself staying up until 2 a.m. and then you have to get up for work at 7. So you only had a few hours of sleep. And then maybe you're a little late to work or you can't focus because you're tired. So the point is, even though that show is bringing you joy when you're watching it in the moment, the consequences of practicing that form of self-care ended up leading to more harm for you the next day. So it's important to be able to assess the forms of self-care we implement in our lives. And here are some ways that you can tell whether you're engaging in beneficial self-care. Your physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being is being prioritized. Time alone and social support is what you need and what you want. Self-care helps you feel better and recharge and suits your lifestyle. Self-care allows your brain to rest and regain focus. You can regulate your emotions in a safe space and be present in the current moment. You know that once a self-care practice produces reluctance, it is no longer a form of self-care for you. I think that one's really important. The example that I tend to give for myself, I'm a runner, and I noticed at one point that I was having a lot of reluctance and dread to go running. And then I realized that I was maybe putting too much pressure on this form of self-care, and I chose to kind of step back. So once you notice that it's producing feelings of reluctance, it might not be a beneficial form of self-care for you. Additionally, you have clear boundaries consistent with those of the profession. You feel more alert and attentive. You recognize a positive and strengthened relationship with your feelings. You can recognize that you don't need fancy or expensive self-care routines and engage in intentional self-care activities for your own benefit. You can reflect on your emotional experiences instead of avoiding them. You acknowledge that self-care is not selfish, but rather an act of improving your ability to care. And lastly, you recognize an increase in your productivity and a boost in creativity. So we have one last reflection question for you all today. It's pretty broad. What new insight gained from this session can you apply to enhance your approach in working with clients and addressing future challenges? Feel free to share your thoughts in the chat. We'll give you a couple minutes to do so.
Normalizing struggle. That is an important part of our presentation today.
The importance of taking care of yourself first, so you have the capacity to take care of other people. So important.
Embracing the suck and embracing it together. I like that. Yes.
It's a great.
Sometimes there's just no way through it. We just got to get through it together, right?
Realizing that my norm is not everybody's norm. Very important.
Yes.
Thank you all for sharing. Greatly appreciate your participation throughout this whole webinar. So we wanted to wrap this webinar up by providing some steps that can be taken to help cultivate resilience. And they are acknowledging your own stress to normalize it, mention the universal nature of stress and show compassion, identify what you've already overcome, encourage positive affirmations, talk about how coping and resilience can be grown every day, recognize your specific strengths and take opportunities to discover additional strengths, participate in self-care, and take advantage of local mental health resources or EAP programs at your agency.
So that was all of the presentation that we had today. We want to finish or wrap this up with just a reminder that applications are open for the next STARS cohort. Again, this was just a little sneak peek of what you can expect in the STARS curriculum. And we are excited to hopefully have some of you join us in that cohort. Thank you everyone for joining us today.